Call the meeting to order. Jen, would you take roll call, please?
Commissioner Corbin.
Here.
Commissioner Johnson.
Here.
Commissioner Waldner.
Here.
Commissioner Thel.
Here.
And Mayor Lindsay.
Here. You have before you the agenda for this evening.
Motion to acknowledge or approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Appearances and acknowledgements. Acknowledge the package off-sale liquor license transfer application and set a date of hearing from Lana Siegelaw to Randy Gruenwald. And do we have anyone here that wanted to speak to that?
Not
If
this
not,
evening, we're just acknowledging.
just
They
acknowledging.
will be here in a couple weeks.
Okay, and the date of the hearing would be November
14.
14th,
Yep.
5:35?
Little explanation on this. Do you want a very quick explanation?
Please.
I can offer. This is the current license held by Lana Siegelaw, who held the license as far as Mike's Packaged Liquor at that South Washington Avenue address. If you've been by there, the place is completely gone. I think there's some used cars sitting there now. They have found a buyer and an entity to transfer this license to. He is from Clark, South Dakota. His name is Randy Gruenwald, and he has retained the services of attorney Dick Erickson. So my office and Dick Erickson's office have worked heavily on this issue. And basically what we are going to ask you to allow is to park this license over at Mr. Erickson's law office. Because at this point in time, Mr. Gruenwald does not have a home. He wants this license, but he doesn't have a legal address to put this license to. So we transfer it for the short term to Mr. Erickson's 100 North Egan Avenue address, and then we will transfer it in the future when Mr. Gruenwald is in town.
Very good.
Okay, but just acknowledging, setting date of hearing this evening. I do anticipate one or both Dick and or Randy here on the evening of the hearing and potential approval.
Okay. Questions or comments? Do we have a motion to acknowledge?
So moved. Second.
Hey, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Is there anything you would like removed from the consent calendar?
Make a motion, we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under old business, hearing upon the application for sale of alcoholic beverages for a temporary alcohol license to the Madison Knights of Columbus. And Jen, did you want to address that at all?
Can. It is for their gala. You see this about on an annual basis. This evening is the hearing. The gala is on November 18th. This is a one-day license for their gala at the St. Thomas School Gym.
Is there anyone here that wanted to speak on that? Okay, if not, we'll move to the approval of the application for the sale of alcoholic beverages. Temporary alcohol license for the Madison Knights of Columbus.
I'll make a motion that we approve the application for sale of alcoholic beverages, temporary alcohol license for the Madison Knights of Columbus.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under new business, authorize the mayor to sign the notice of grant award and the environmental report from the South Dakota Office of Emergency Management, the Hazard Mitigation Grant. And this is the grant and that we applied for the purchase and removal of the sample, our Flowers building, which is right on the creek, and that on North Washington Avenue. So, questions or comments?
Make a motion that we authorize the mayor to sign the notice of grant award environmental report, South Dakota Office of Emergency Management for the Hazard Mitigation Grant.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 2, authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Bert and Janine Sample on the commercial real estate purchase that the mitigation grant was for. Do we have any questions or comments, or do we have a motion?
How much is the city contributing?
25%? 25%. But in here, the city is also getting reimbursed in that. So the purchase price was 73. The amount of the grant is capped at 80,025. The FEMA will pay $60,019. City of Madison will pay $20,000.
So we're getting reimbursed part of the whole, not just the whole, not the whole, not the whole purchase?
We're getting reimbursed for 75% of the whole process.
Okay,
Yes.
so I don't know if your question was, what's gonna be the bill to the city in this process? Or,
Right.
Not just to the
Regardless of the sale price, it's 25%.
25%.
And that's all of the FEMA grants and that.
Have we figured out where our funds are coming from?
Contingency fund.
This is unbudgeted in 2016 or 2017. If you want to move forward with this, the only dollars we would have available would be contingency funds. You'll remember budgeting some of those every year. We have not tapped that at all yet this year for 2016.
I just don't know if this is the right way to go. I just don't think the city of Madison should get into the real estate business. First of all, we don't have a real estate license. We're out buying property. We're gonna open up a can of worms that, somewheres along the line, we're gonna have to buy out a lot of other people. You got the Mexican joint across the way. When the water gets high again, they're gonna say, hey, even if FEMA don't say it's a flood, they're gonna say, hey, we're all washed out. How about Camel Supply? What are we gonna do there? Comes a time when we gotta worry about our infrastructure. We got water mains popping like candy machines this time of year. What are we gonna do? Do we have sticky valves down there that we gotta replace a valve in the water treatment plant, or what is it? We can
Well,
put our
I'm-
$20,000 towards infrastructure and fix our main problems and let it go.
This piece of property in that is right in the floodplain. And the issue with it is when the stop signs were there and all vehicles had to stop, they started at 0 going north up Washington Avenue. Now that it's changed to a 30-mile-an-hour area coming up to the stoplights, the cars are shooting through there at 30 miles an hour. The doorway and to that empties right out onto the street. It's a safety factor from the standpoint, if you have someone in there shopping with little kids and the little kids decide to run on ahead, they'll run right out into that 30-mile-an-hour traffic now. The other thing is because of where it's located, they can't fix it up. So it's a situation where FEMA is putting out 75% to remove it from the floodplain. The other side of the coin is, by removing it from the floodplain, everybody in Madison benefits because when we open up the floodplain, it lowers the cost that people have to pay for flood insurance. And so we just went through that here, what was it, last year, Chad? And that when we went through and they checked the things and we got a favorable rating because, our floodplain, we're opening it up as needed. So it's also a situation where if it isn't purchased by the city with FEMA paying 75% of it, we could be forced to purchase it and not pay 100% of it down the road.
Mr. Mayor.
And so this is a $20,000 expenditure that I think is very well spent, especially on safety and from the standpoint of the building is going to deteriorate where it's at, much like the Winks building has been doing for 14 years. Yes, sir.
If I may. So when the opening the floodplain, we're basically saying there's more floodplain as a result of this, correct?
We have a lot of the town in the
Just
floodplain.
as we're opening the floodplain, right?
Mhm.
Okay. So when we say opening the floodplain, we're making the floodplain bigger,
No, we're not making it bigger.
Okay, what are we
We're
doing?
making it,
Explain
we're
that.
reducing the resistance of water going through town.
I think that's
Because you
important.
take, you
Part-
take
part
a
of the
big
public
block
interest.
out of the way so the water can move through easier.
Okay.
So it improves moving water through town.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Johnson.
I mean, that's a legitimate question for the public to understand. I
Absolutely.
certainly need to be told something like of a fifth grader sometimes, but opening can mean several things. So when you open the floodplain, what does that mean? So, the biggest benefit is that there's less resistant to water, to possible flooding.
Taking an obstruction out. yeah.
Thereby lowering hazard, thereby lowering insurance premium.
Mr.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Correct.
what do you got mics in front of your phone? Let's use it so we can hear.
Okay, and then if you gentlemen would like to speak in that, because it's recorded, if you'll come up to the microphone here,
Well,
then people can
I mean,
can hear
Hear
it.
what you guys talking.
Okay.
Sorry, Marvin.
Did you understand what Kelly just said? Do you want to repeat that?
I
Kelly?
asked, when we say opening the floodplain, what does that mean? 'Cause that it could be interpreted to the public as several things, really. Opening the floodplain might mean, as they explained it, it means basically that should water be heavy, should flow be significant, it lowers the possibility, mitigates the possibility that we could, that could be an impediment to flood, or it could prevent flooding, basically, when they say opening the floodplain. So, I guess that question, because when Roy made the comment, it lowers insurance premiums. I said, well, how? Well, because it opens the floodplain. Well, okay, then what's open the floodplain mean? So I just thought it was, for me anyway, an important thing to understand.
Reduces the restrictions for the flow of water. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Please, because these microphones don't do anything for you guys. It's going to the recorder for people that want to watch it on the computers at home.
Since the first time you brought this up, I've been paying attention to different communities I'm going through. Same situation. They have business to put guardrails up so people can't step out of the business onto the street. That's a simple solution to that problem. But you're also, did I understand right in the paper, you purchased Winks Building and it's $150,000 to tear that down?
That's the estimate,
That's
yes.
the estimate. So where are you gonna get that $150,000 and this $20,000? And taking one place out of the floodplain isn't gonna change our insurance rates at all. You still got the Mexican place, you got the dentist office, you got Campbell's, you got their other building, you got the insurance. That corner is just a slough. One building out of there isn't gonna change that insurance rate.
It does make a difference. When FEMA puts it on paper, it does make a difference. The other thing is, they can't fix it up. So do we let it sit there and fall down like the 9th Street house that finally, across from the clinic, finally came down?
There are rules in place that you can make Winks clean up their property, you can make samples, take it, there's rules there. It isn't up to the taxpayers to do this for you.
The Winks property is a different situation in that it's a corporation. And as a corporation, if you follow the presidential debates right now, you can understand why the Republican candidate has filed bankruptcy on multi-billions of dollars worth of real estate, and it doesn't affect his personal. Because when it's a corporation, you're an officer of the corporation, you can't touch their personal assets. So with the Wink building, which is not on the agenda for this evening, that is a totally separate situation. This situation right here is, we had an opportunity in that to take a look at cleaning up the floodplain and also opening up and helping a little bit on the beautification going up North Washington Avenue when we have about $30 million worth of construction going up there on DSU. I do not see an advantage to that building just sitting there until it gradually falls and crumbles inward. And so when you go after assets and that to get something cleaned up, people have to have the assets. If they don't have the assets, then you can't get blood from a turnip. And so on this, we discussed it before. We went through and we applied for a FEMA grant. FEMA saw the situation, saw the building, and decided that they would back 75% of the cost of removing it. So $20,000 to the citizens is pretty simple and pretty cheap. Does this mean that we buy every floodplain piece out? The answer is no. Every one of them is an individual situation and discussed as an individual situation.
But once you set that precedent, it's very hard to back out of it. I understand what you're saying, but
Very
once you
good.
set that. you
The
have-
precedence has been set before. We had the flood of 93. There were a lot of places removed in 93.
Yep.
Okay, so the precedence has been set before. So,
But they were all destroyed in that flood.
no, they weren't all destroyed. Some of them never had water on the main floor at all. I can name a half dozen of them that only had water in the basement only, and yet the houses were moved.
Because FEMA come in and put that floodplain there, and that's why we bought.
Well, the
all this
floodplain's
stuff.
always been here.
They
Floodplain's
changed
always
that
been here.
During the flood of 93, I was
Okay.
on the commission.
Okay? Okay. Well, getting back to this situation right here, for safety reasons and from the standpoint of the inability to be able to fix the property up, to make it look presentable, and to remove the danger of people exiting the building, I believe this, that, you know, FEMA has the right idea, and I believe that the $20,000 spent by the city is going to be the right direction and the right move to make. Other questions or comments?
I
Go ahead.
just don't think that safety issue needs to be brought up all the time, because you go down Northwest Second, you're gonna see people coming off the sidewalk out of the residence, and they're gonna be right onto the property, just as close as they are right here. You're talking about a young kid could run right out in the street. Well, they got the same problem right here on Second Street. And I just don't like taking it off the tax roll, because we're taking enough property off the tax roll the way it is in the front footage fee.
I mean, the Taco John's and the Dairy Queen are in the same situation, you could say, as samples.
Pretty close, except their buildings are in good condition and they're able to maintain them because they're out of the floodplain. And that, this one here, they're limited. They can't fix it up. So it's an opportunity to remove it before it crumbles inward. Yes, sir. Yes, if you'd come up to the microphone so people at home can hear it. And if you'd state who you are, so,
My
thank
name's
you.
Randy Sample. I'm
Okay.
the son of the Burton Janine Sample. I came just to find out the answer that you guys are gonna have, so I could let my parents know right away, so they could let the friends and family know before they found out about by somebody else. But I think there's some misinformation here. We've contacted a lot of people to try and find out what we can do with the property. From all aspects, we can't really do anything. From what I've found out, there's 3 levels of flood zone stuff. There's an absolutely, you cannot do anything with flood area. And there's an outside of that is a flood area. And then there's a third one, which you can do kind of whatever you want to, but you gotta increase your insurance and that kind of stuff. Where the flower shop is, it's in that, there's a, that's not on the map. An area that, on the map, it looks like it turns into a pond right there at the flower shop. And the reason that the Dakota Land put the ATM where it's at is because part of the old Skinner's liquor store is also in that pond area that you cannot put anything into. So that's why they had to put the ATM just slightly outside of that into the second step of flood zone. So that's why we haven't been able to do anything with the building. I don't know exactly how the dentist did what he did. He had to get a lot of people involved from what I hear, and there was a lot of stipulations on what he could and could not do with the building. From what I understand, he could move the building, but he couldn't adjust the positioning on the block whatsoever, at whatever angle. It had to be exactly moved 10 feet or 20 feet ahead as it was. I don't know about Campbell Supply because the map that I have doesn't go that far downstream. The Mexican restaurant is outside of the flood pond area, so they're in a different flood zone issue. And again, I don't think it's owned by the person, I think it's owned by the same people that own, Loopies, or, Scoobies. As far as the steps go, from what I understand, the city property starts at the landing of the bottom step. So putting a railing up there would force our the customers not to be able to get into the building whatsoever, because that would completely block off the steps. We've talked to people about simply moving the steps in a different direction, but then you have to get the Corps of Engineers involved, because you're altering the flow of the water through that flood pond area, and they need to be involved, you need insurance involved, you need all sorts of other people involved, and that's even if they'll let you do it. We've talked about putting steps out the north end of the building. Again, they need to be involved in all that stuff. We've talked about raising the entire structure up to get it out of the floodplain, because I understand that you have to raise it 2 or 3 or 4 feet, as long as it stays on the same foundation. Some people are okay with that, but it depends on who you talk to. I get different answers from every person I talk to.
To do that, you have to get a no-rise certificate saying that the water that would have normally gone through that area will not be diverted onto someone else, creating a greater hazard on the other people. And so that's where a no-rise certificate comes in. And we've been down that road a number of times too, through Chad's office, on, other projects. And where you're sitting there, the land is lower than where the ATM machine is, and that's where that line comes through. The dentist's office was also in the next zone up, away from the one that you're referring to. And so we've looked at this, I've looked at this, we've talked with FEMA, and that's why we pursued this hazard mitigation grant, and FEMA went along with it. But we do have to cover 25% of the cost. Now, in this, the city gets reimbursed for the time and equipment use and that for the removal of the building and moving it to the restricted use site. That's why the amount is $80,025 above the 73, because that includes the closing costs and the building removal and that the city will get reimbursed for. And so that's covered at 75% as well. Thank you.
One other
Yes.
statement. I understand Madison needs businesses, and they do. But the only person employed at the flower shop right now is my mother. So she's not really contributing to a whole lot. And she's 82 years old, so she's gonna be stopping working here pretty soon. Then the business will just sit there empty until something happens to it. So I hope I've touched on everybody's concerns. If anybody's got questions for me?
What are the plans if this doesn't move forward?
We've talked about it, and they might just close, because they can't fix the building. It's leaking several different places. If you would walk through there when it's raining, we've tried to cover it up with decorations, plants and everything, so the customer wouldn't really know, but it does leak several places. If you drive by, you can see that most of the shingles are gone. I've walked up there to put Christmas lights around the eave trough, and there's some places that I would have fallen through if I didn't know that those holes already existed. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
How long have they been there?
I think they've been at that location for 40 years, 45. They were across the street where the Alumni Association is right now. There was a gas station there. They owned that for a while, and then sold it to Security Bank, and they moved to where they're at right now.
Did they know they were moving into the floodplain?
No, this was years and years
Right.
ago, and it was a gas station at that point. And over the years, things change, I guess. I don't
Absolutely.
know what the situation was way back then.
Right.
At that point.
It's kind of what I'm getting at. They kind of fell into a situation that, though they were by the creek, that,
Right,
of
right.
course, it seems back then it was a bit drier too, so.
Yeah, maybe.
Go ahead, Mike.
Any questions for me?
Yes,
Yeah.
if I remember right, that was badly flooded, excuse me, that was badly flooded, the building previously, wasn't
Say
it?
again?
I'm sorry, the building was flooded before, right?
Yeah, in the 93 flood.
Okay. Just want to confirm. Thank you.
Yep. Any-
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You know, from the public safety perspective, I've been on the flood mitigation task force and different things, and you know, we have a lot of places, as was pointed out in town, that there's a lot of places people can get hurt and things. I don't disagree with the idea of cars still zipping through there as they're trying to get slowed down to 20 but from a flood mitigation perspective and with my hat as public safety, that's one of the things that, you know, we keep trying to do. And Chad's office, Ryan's, you know, done a great job because it's kind of his forte in some of the flood mitigation things. And this is indeed was one of the things. And for us to be able to have FEMA come in and help us with this purchase, I think is awesome to be able to utilize some of the other funds. Personally, I think the $20,000 is money well spent, and for them to also help with the cleanup of it and things as well. It'll kind of clean that area out. Bert and Jeannie have done a fabulous job. They've run a great business there for many years, and they're ready to retire. And unfortunately, you know, nobody else is picking up on that building, mostly because you can't do anything with it, and certainly can't change things. We've ran into that in some of our other parks that we're trying to do things in. So with that, I'll make the motion to
I
authorize.
have one more question. Has anybody ever seen lab analyzation of that ground over there? Well, there should have been one done years ago, or when the flood came through. We should have some kind of lab analyzation
They
to
redrew-
tell us what the ground, if there's any contaminated soil in the ground, because if that's the case, we're gonna probably have to dig up a lot of area over there.
Well, I think the Petroleum Release Fund went through years
Yeah.
ago and did those and put cities on notice. If we know, I think if there was still an issue there.
And there's
I can't
also,
guarantee that, but I, that's my understanding of the building.
there's also no basement. So basically, and that is, as long as you don't disturb the soil, you don't have to do anything with it. So just removing the building from the surface of the ground would not be disturbing the soil. So city should be fine on that one.
Mayor, could I ask one more question?
Excuse me.
Certainly.
I didn't mean to-
Is describing of the building as shot, what are we doing then? Are we buying a shot building or are we buying a business out?
No, we're buying the property and removing the building
So
from the property.
We're buying a piece of property that's absolutely worthless and we're giving $70,000 for it.
That's the appraisal in that from FEMA in order to purchase the property. That's why it's nice that the citizens only have to pay 25% of it.
How did FEMA get involved so fast in the sample building?
It's been going on for about a year. It's something that
Why didn't it happen in '93?
I can't answer that. You're going back to history
No,
before us.
You weren't the mayor then.
No.
I think you guys are getting carried away at buying property.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
Last time you talked about.
You want to come up, because otherwise they're going to hear,
Motion should not be interrupted,
That's right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, I was,
just as a point of order.
Okay.
No one has the right to interrupt the motion.
yeah,
People have the right to speak
right,
to the motion.
correct.
Do you want to make the motion?
at this
That's
point,
all.
at this
Mike
point,
wants to
I'm,
make the motion, he can. If he's gonna yield to more comments, he certainly can. That's all.
I'll yield to more questions or comments. Final comments.
Okay, when you first talked about it, Mayor, you said the appraisal was for the building the business and the property.
Not the business, the building and the property.
I
Building
think
and
he
the
did
property.
say that, but I think he misspoke. I think he misspoke.
I
Yeah.
do believe you said.
Yeah, it does
That's why
not,
the Lord
it
made
does,
erasers.
nah, it does not include the value of the business. It's the square footage of the building that dictated the appraisal value. The square footage of the building that dictated the value.
And then after that meeting, there was a picture in the paper of safflower flowers, front page, as I looked at it.
Okay.
And right by the steps you guys are talking about, there's a light pole. There's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit right there. So that should be slowing people down after the lights.
Should be. It's not.
And then maybe we should set a police officer out there and enforce that. I mean, if you're talking about public safety, if they're going through.
Well, the other thing that we're talking about too is the building is gonna sit there and just keep falling in and falling in and falling in. And so it's also not only removing it from the standpoint of, alleviating some of the flood zone, it's also eliminating, basically, you could say, a potential eyesore, a potential danger, and a potential area in that, like we've had with Winks, with people getting in there because you can't secure it. So, and it's also right in the heart of coming right up the street, right on up through the main part of town, up toward the Dakota State University campus. So beautification is another reason as well.
I guess I have no problem with tearing it down. I totally agree with you, but I think the concerns are, where are we getting the money?
We have a
A lot.
contingency fund for things in that are not budgeted for.
Who's tearing it down? Is the city gonna tear it down?
City is taking it down and getting reimbursed for it
Okay.
in this grant too.
So about how much of it is out of the city's pocket?
20,000.
20,000 to finish paying off the building that FEMA doesn't cover, plus the removing of it?
No,
Is-
the total cost to the city, 20,000.
Right, right. So that will take care of it all to get rid of it.
Correct.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
May I comment quickly?
Yes.
Total project cost is about $80,000.
Yes.
We do expect 20,000 of that to be city cost. I don't know about the timing of this beast, because this agreement here that you have in front of you has a closing date of December 20th. It's quite likely that you may have to expend and cover with your contingency more than that $20,000, because you may not have
Before
that
we get
reimbursement
paid.
back.
Yeah.
Okay, so just so that's not a surprise with your contingency transfer, that all of a sudden it's 80,000, it's not 20,000.
But
It's
I
80.
think that's why the
And
word
in-
reimbursement's being used, because it will come
Exactly.
back.
It will, but
Yes,
on paper, you may
Logistics.
have to approve that
yes.
as that full amount. Thank you.
And FEMA requires that the city pay full amount, and then they reimburse the city 75% of that.
Which probably won't happen until 2017.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Can I finish my
Okay.
motion,
Yes.
or did I go far enough?
I think you need to make the motion.
Okay. I will make the motion to authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Burt and Jeannie Sample for commercial real estate purchase.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 3, authorize the mayor to sign the certificate of substantial completion with Bose Construction Surfacing Improvement Project 2016-2. And Chad, would you like to address that?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Just very briefly, this is a standard contract document that does what the name of the certificate states. It just certifies the date of substantial completion. There's final cleanup work and such that happen after this date. This is also a pertinent date in the agreement relative to any warranty items that come up. The contractor did sign this on the 26th. I also agree and will sign and execute this as well. It's blanket where I say sign right now. But then it's just a standard contract document that you've seen on other contracts as well. I would recommend the approval of the certificate of substantial completion.
Okay. Questions or comments? Do we have a motion?
Streets look nice, so Make a motion to approve it. Trying to get
Second.
to the-
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 4, consider the Sidewalk Committee recommendations for the 2017 assessments. And again, I'll ask Chad to address that one.
Thank you, Your Honor. The Sidewalk Committee has met after the budget discussions to talk about possible locations for sidewalk assessments in 2017. They met on October 12th and then again on October 20th. On the 12th, they identified a few areas and asked me to look at some pricing, city cost for those, which is for the corners typically. As whichever areas they do select would need to be within the budgeted amount for 2017, which is $40,000. We did meet on the 20th, where they did recommend the areas that they would like to see sidewalk installed. The minutes for the meeting are in the agenda packet, and they're also shown on these maps I have here. I've split the town into 2 halves. The yellow shows the places where there are sidewalks along the streets. You'll also see there's a portion of a red box around the middle high school area, and then there's some blue lines or cyan colored lines over near Bachman Bellotti Park. These were the areas that they recommended, and I'll go through those individually. We'll start with the school areas. You may recall in the last 2 years, they selected 1 block out from the schools and accomplished that for all the schools. And then the next year, 2 blocks out from the schools. That was recommended as a priority 1 back in the 1996 plan, and so that was focused on the last 2 years. This year, relative to the schools, as you could see, you move out 1 block at a time. I'm not going to say it's exponential, but the amount of sidewalk increases rapidly as you go out. You know, you're increasing blocks more, and so one thing we talked about was tempering that back a little bit, if you will, or so it's a palatable size project for bidding and for a contractor to get done in the same year and so on. And so when looking at the different school zone alternatives, they recommended to look at the 3 blocks out from the school and selected the middle high school area. With both St. Thomas and the elementary school, it encapsulates an area on Union Avenue and Josephine Avenue where the city would have to put in sidewalk in those. And because of the significant amount of sidewalk that was put in from city reserves last year, those are mostly depleted. There was funds put in for 2017, but it would not be enough to do the city's portion on those. So maybe that would be something that's revisited in subsequent years by the Sidewalk Committee. That brings us back to the middle high school area. I created a report. I didn't need to get into the fine details with you necessarily, but there are 15 properties affected by this middle school area. Again, we don't include the corners, the ADA ramps, I should say. We do, but at the same time, we do not leave a dead end. You know, if there's a dead-ended sidewalk that's put in, we put the ramp in at that time. Otherwise, if there's a step down or something like that, we leave that as is so that there can be access, albeit in some cases not ADA access. And a little bit of a side note on that, the idea is that when there's repaving projects, we're required by the federal regulations to do all the ADAs on those projects, like was done on Northwest 7th and Northwest 5th this year. So that's maybe somewhat offsets the concern of not doing the ADAs entirely at the same time. Well, another comment about not doing the ADAs all at the same time is we certainly wouldn't be able to do this many blocks if we would do all the ADA ramps in those, because that would greatly exceed the budget there. And that's how the Sidewalk Committee has recommended the last 2 years, and again this year, to do the school areas. So that brings us to what I'll call the route specific areas. That approach that they've used for about 10 years prior to the last 2 is where they select a route where they've either had input from the public, input that they've observed on their own, or recommendations in city plans and so forth. to put sidewalks. The area that was selected this year was near Bachman Park on First Street Northeast, straight west of Bachman Park. You can see the lack of yellow lines on this map here, which means there's some missing sidewalks. So it goes from Bachman Park all the way over to Garfield. In addition, because the corners are where the city realizes most of the costs, they were able to fill in other parts of that area on Garfield Avenue itself and also Jefferson Avenue with very minimal additional costs, because the cost, again, of the 40,000, a great deal of that is for the corners, those 88 corners at the intersections of First Street and Garfield and First Street and Jefferson. And so that is the second part of their recommendation, is to do those streets as shown in blue on this map, and then the middle high school area, priority, it's referred to as priority 2 within 3 blocks of the middle high school. My current estimates are, and I estimate that we would be able to accomplish the city's portion within the budgeted amount of the 40,000 for those areas. And that, the action that you typically have taken in years past at this point is you'd acknowledge these. You can accept them, you can reject them, you can modify them, or you could send the whole thing back to the sidewalk committee to have them come, look at some different areas. In the past, mostly you've accepted those, and then you direct my office to create, we have to research the legal descriptions for all the property, we have to go to the courthouse and create a resolution, and then that's considered by the commission, typically late November, early December timeframe, and then prior to that, we send notices out to all the affected landowners, and they can come in and express any concerns or ask any questions they may have at that time, and that's when any final decision would be made by the commission on whether or not to proceed or not. The resolution is necessary. My understanding, and we've done this for several years now, is to meet the statutes, I guess you could say, to allow it to go through an assessment process, and that's why we have to go through the formalities of the resolution. Plus, it documents things somewhat cleanly and gives a pretty definitive list so people can understand it. So that's my summary of what the sidewalk committee recommended, how the process has went in the past, what I see as different courses of action you can take based upon what you've done in the past, and what might happen going forward also, depending on your action tonight.
Questions or comments?
I think the sidewalk committee has real good discussion when they make these determinations, and they have a pretty robust process for deciding the neighborhoods that'll get to put sidewalk in next summer, so I'd feel good in making a recommendation to recommend the committee's proposals.
You want to make that as a motion?
I don't know if that was a motion or not. You guys can speak a little bit if you'd like, but.
Motion should be to accept the recommendation.
Oh. We're having a lesson on motions, I think.
This should be made before the discussion, actually.
You're right.
This should be.
Don't get me wrong, sidewalks are important. But I think that the city, before you guys start going around telling every place that you guys need to put sidewalk in your property, up there on 9th, which is two blocks, it's within 2 blocks radius of the elementary school, there is no sidewalk in that park. Shouldn't there be sidewalk there, which people run up and down that road? Before you guys start telling everybody else to put sidewalk in their own properties at their expense, shouldn't the city cover their own expense first and then go around and tell people? Heater said that 2 block radius, that sidewalk's supposed to be in all the schools, correct?
Yeah, that was the recommendation.
The elementary school does not have 2 blocks of sidewalk radius.
What's your name, sir?
Nathanville.
Okay. There's some caveat to why there isn't sidewalk up there, correct?
On 9th Street, it would be west of West Avenue in the ditch section.
And that
We
goes
haven't
out to
put-
Highway 81, which is not a destination. And so, typically the sidewalk committee and that looks, at residential destinations from point A to point B.
So some places, like going out to Bachman, that leads to a gravel road, so that's kind of no destination, same thing as Highway 81, right?
There are homes out there,
Yeah.
and then when you get out there, you have to go out, and then you go north, then you come back in
Yeah.
to the Hampton Court area.
Yeah.
So that is an area that, is covering the residential areas.
I guess I just don't understand on why we have to put sidewalks in places inside of town that not very many people use, but we got people running up and down Ninth Street, and in the mornings, you can't see them. I mean, you literally.
We've had a
cannot
young
see
lady
them.
hit there before.
I mean, but it's the driver's responsibility.
It is.
So why can't we just give them an edge to run that? You know, like on the side of the highway, or put a bike path up there or something. I mean, we have no problem putting bike paths out there. Why can't we put a bike path up to 81 or something? You know, so at least they can run on that until they get to where there's some streetlights where they can be seen.
Well, the other thing would be to educate them, if they go down one block, they could be running on sidewalks and make the same distance that they want to run. I can't answer as to why they are running there, okay? But that is a different issue than what we have here. This here is dealing with sidewalks in residential areas where we do have people that walk from place to place.
Would you like to get on the sidewalk committee if it's open?
One real quick comment, I mean, I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I know I'm on the rec trail committee or trail committee, and we've talked about that area as well. And I think that's something else that, we can talk about on the sidewalk committee as well. So, I mean, it's good input, and, yeah, I know what you're talking about, so.
I mean, I drive up there for my job, and there's people running at 6:30 in the morning because that's their time to run. Well, driving a garbage truck, they don't have no neon or anything on.
And some of them are wearing black.
Yeah, I'm gonna end up hitting one of them, that's my fault.
Yeah. Yeah, it is, it's,
I feel that-
there
I
are
feel
so
that
many
the
places
city
in
should-
town that they could run for
I
exercise.
feel the city should provide something up there then, even if it's 2 feet off the edge of the road.
Yeah, yep.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a 4-foot sidewalk. Provide them something where they are not running on the road.
You need approval
Yep,
of
I
this
hear
or
you.
an acknowledgement? Just
Pardon me?
just an acknowledgement?
We have a motion
Motion to
to
acknowledge
accept,
it.
There's a motion
considering
to
the
accept
sidewalk
sidewalk
recommendation.
committee's recommendation. That's the motion.
And Commissioner Johnson, what I will do with that is I'll take that and have my office and we'll look up the legal descriptions and bring forth that process that I described for the resolution, the proposed resolution being before you where there's input from the public. And then you will have an opportunity to take that input
Revisit.
and act at
Yeah,
that
this
time.
is by far.
That's why I wondered if it was just acknowledgement or.
Yeah, you are, this is not the only opportunity for public comment on the area.
Thank you.
What all you're doing tonight is deciding whether you like or can accept the sidewalk committee's recommendation. It can still be, it could still be altered.
Okay, thank you.
So we do have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Seeing no announcements, no executive session, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion, we
Yeah, I got
adjourn.
a question for you before you.
Okay?
No, we have a motion on the
No,
floor first.
no, hold on.
What's the motion?
Do we have a second on that one?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Go ahead. You want to discuss now?
Yeah,
Meeting's over now, but go ahead.
I want to know if you guys checked out what I told the commissioner about the right of way of the railroad on Weeks property. Maybe check that out.
You didn't talk to me, so I don't know anything. Answer.
The commissioner,
No, I don't know anything. I don't know the answer. Who did he speak with?
well, I
He
have
spoke to
Mike
me.
or
Okay,
Bob. I
okay.
don't know if I talked to Kelly or
No, you
Okay.
didn't, not about this.
not. You better find out before you buy all that property and spend all that money, where the right of way is, because Terry Schultz, go ask him why he had to buy out that house across the railroad.
We have two deeds to the property, which takes it right up to the edge of the railroad, right away. So that has been, has already been looked into. Yep, yep. There are 2 deeds to that property because at one time, the railroad owned up to within 6 feet of the back of Wink's building, and then Wink's bought the piece behind them.
Why did Harry have to
Those are nice,
quit
I like
parking
them.
on the south
Kind of
side?
nice to see it.